Group handling. It's important to make sure everyone on the hill is safe. As instructors, we make sure our students know and understand the rules for their safety and for ours. In our lessons, we can make the code come alive for our students by introducing it at appropriate moments during the day and by demonstrating it throughout our lesson. For most adults, comparing the responsibility code to the rules of the road makes an easily understandable analogy. For kids, we can compare it to the first rules we learned about crossing the street or riding a bike. Throughout the day, present the relevant points, explain the whys behind the rules, and always check for understanding. Starting in the beginner yards, remind your students that it's always their responsibility to avoid people below them, no matter the path that the downhill person chooses to take. Yelling, "Look out below!" or "Get out of my way," it just doesn't count. Help your students follow this rule by setting up your teaching zones for safety. Use your class handling skills so your students can avoid human bullying in the beginner area. On the mountain, remind your students that although the downhill skier always has the right of way, avoiding collisions becomes easier for everyone when they make predictable movements. Just like driving a car or riding a bike, sudden lane changes or swerving across the trail can make it very difficult for those behind you to avoid you. When regrouping on the side of the hill, encourage the group to pull in below each other instead of coming in from above, then peel out from the bottom. This is also a great way to rotate through the group so everyone gets a chance to lead or follow directly behind you. From the first rides up the surface lift to the beginner chairs and beyond, remind your students to always ask if they're unfamiliar with loading or unloading procedures and to read the signage about terrain and number of people on the chair. Even with higher level classes, never assume that everyone has ridden a particular type of lift. Be sure to cover all aspects of lining up, loading, riding, and unloading. To help kids learn the rules, you can compare lift riding procedures to riding a roller coaster at the amusement park. You have to wait in line for your turn, pay attention to the lift attendant, and sometimes listen to a safety talk. Gather your group off to the side to watch a few chairs being loaded. Be sure your most experienced riders or a ski school assistant go first and can help gather the group outside the landing zone at the top. The need to stay in control is the first point of the skier's responsibility code and should be introduced at the start of any lesson and reinforced throughout the day. On the mountain, help your students understand that they have many options for staying in control, like using the terrain to slow down, the position of their skis or board on the hill, their gliding wedge, falling leaf, or turns and turn shape. But their most important tool to stay in control is their brain. Just as when they're driving, riding a bike, or crossing the street, the path they take and the speed they choose determines their safety. Help them learn how to make good decisions based on their current ability, trail designation, snow conditions, traffic, and fatigue. Just as you have to look both ways and watch for traffic as you merge onto a highway or cross a street, you must look uphill to yield to traffic when entering a ski run. This includes trail intersections and exiting the trees. When your students are timing their entrance, teach them to look for traffic patterns and observe the different speeds of skiers and snowboarders moving down the hill. Consider the size of your group and the time it takes for the whole group to enter a trail. Have those at the top of the group keep a lookout for those below, since they have the clearest view of what's coming from above. Remember that major trail intersections and junctures are not good teaching terrain. Move through these zones while keeping your group together till you reach less traffic terrain. With all your students, help point out the potential blind spots on the mountain. When you stop, ask your students if they feel this is a safe spot. They should be able to see the hill above them and any skiers and snowboarders below. For snowboard classes, avoid places where it would be difficult to get started again. Designated rest areas can be a great option. While it's usually safest to stop on the side of a trail, teach your students to look for tracks from skiers or snowboarders that may be coming out of the trees. Help your students notice signs throughout the lesson. A rope line is the same as a closed sign. Many students may not be aware of the potential hazards they may encounter in closed areas. Snowmaking or grooming equipment, avalanche danger, patrol work, cliffs, creeks, moose, and other wildlife are all possibilities. Teaching safe slope navigation is a vital part of any lesson. For new skiers and riders, it'll help them have the ability to make wiser decisions as they enjoy a new sport. Don't assume that a student knows and understands the rules just because they're a more advanced skier or rider. As you're teaching, find moments to remind your students the rules and how they apply in different situations. If you're teaching children, discuss with their parents how you talked about the code in your lesson, and ask your young students to make sure their parents follow the rules too.